For my composer story this week, we are going to be learning about a composer named Pytor Tchaikovsky. And this is another famous children's story. So we're going to hear a story about him when he was a child, when he was young. And then I'm also going to link in the comments for this post, I'm going to link 2 different videos that are not mine, just videos that I found, that you can listen to some of Tchaikovsky's music. So most of you have heard the Nutcracker, and that is one of his most famous pieces. So I'm linking that in the comments. And then I'm also linking a very interesting remix of the Nutcracker as well, so something a little more modern. So this is the story of Tchaikovsky when he was a child. Goodbye, Mama. Goodbye, Nikolai. Come back soon. The 2 children waved as the carriage disappeared around the corner. Little Peter had tears in his eyes. When will she be back? He asked his father. She won't be long, said Mr. Tchaikovsky. Mama's taking Nikolai to St. Petersburg to find you a governess. Don't look so sad, Peter. Peter's little sister Sasha seemed to have already forgotten Mama. Suddenly, Peter stood still. Sasha, he called, I've got a great idea. Let's make up a song for Mama. We can sing it to her when she comes back. We'll call it our Mama in St. Petersburg. And he started to hum a tune. They're here! The sound of the carriage wheels brought everyone out of the house. Peter ran to Mama and she picked him up and hugged him. The courtyard was crowded with happy people as everyone rushed to welcome Mama home. This is Fanny, our new governess, said Mama to Papa. Mr. Tchaikovsky greeted Fanny warmly. I hope you will be very happy with us, Fanny, he said. The next morning, Fanny began to teach the older children, Nikolai and his cousin Lydia. Fanny was a good teacher, and lessons were fun. Why can't I have lessons, Fanny? Pleaded Peter. Because you are too little. Every day, Peter came to Fanny's schoolroom until one morning she said with a sigh, Oh, very well, Peter, you can have lessons too. Peter adored Fanny and enjoyed his lessons. Soon he could read and write better than his older brother. But he was so messy. He never tied his shoelaces. His shirt was always buttoned the wrong way. There was dirt on his trousers and his hands were always grubby. Just look at you, Peter, said Fanny as she smoothed his uncombed hair. You're a mess. One morning, Peter was alone in the nursery. Suddenly, he heard the sound of galloping horses and rushed to the window. The winter snow lay thick on the ground. Gallop, 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 gallop. The rhythm of the horses' hooves sounded like music to Peter, and he tapped in time on the window. The louder the sounds, the harder he hit the glass. Suddenly, it shattered as his little hand went through the window pane. He screamed. Fanny and Mama washed and bandaged his hand. Why did you break the window, Peter? Asked Mama. It was the music of the horses, explained Peter. What horses? Asked Fanny. She carried Peter to the window. There were no hoof prints in the smooth white snow. You had better have piano lessons, said Mama. The next time you hear the music of the horses, you can play it instead on the piano. It will be less dangerous. The house was quiet. The grown-ups had been dancing to the music of Papa's player piano. When Papa changed the music rolls, Peter would run to his piano and pick out the tunes. Later that evening, as Fanny came upstairs, she heard Peter crying. This music, it won't let me sleep. Fanny tried to calm him. There is no music, Peter. Everyone's gone home. It's here, said Peter, pointing to his head. I can't get rid of it, and it won't leave me alone. Papa had a new job, and the whole family was moving to Moscow. Fanny was not going with them. There were tears in her eyes as she kissed the sleeping children goodbye. When Peter realized she had gone, he was very, very sad. He tried to write her a letter, but he cried so much that the pen made 5 blots on the paper and he had to start again. When they arrived in Moscow, someone else had taken Papa's new job. "Let's go to St. Petersburg," said Mama. "Nikolai and Peter can go to the Schmeling school there." The family did as Mama suggested, but Peter hated school, and there was too much homework. Sometimes he did not finish until midnight, so he was quite happy one morning when he woke up covered with red spots. He had caught the measles. The measles made Peter very sick, and he had to stay at home. His mother found a new governess for him named Anastasia. Peter's mother wrote to Fanny, "Dear and good Fanny, although I am satisfied with Anastasia, the children are not the same as when they were with you, especially Peter. He has become impatient, and he answers back and cries whenever he is told to do something he does not like. I hope he will grow out of it before he goes to boarding school." Boarding school! Whenever he thought of it, Peter trembled with fear and hurried to the piano. He was a very frail and sensitive child. "Made of china," Fanny had said. "I am always at the piano," he wrote to her. "It cheers me up when I am sad." In September 1850, when he was 10 years old, Peter started in the preparatory class of the School of Law in St. Petersburg. Peter was very lonely without Nikolai, who had been sent to a different school. The family now lived far away, but Mama stayed in St. Petersburg while he was getting settled. Peter clung to his mother's hand. A few tears ran down his cheeks, but he was calm. They were traveling to the Central Turnpike, where Mama would board the coach to return home. Their friend Mr. Kaiser had brought his 2 children to keep Peter company. When Mama left, he would take Peter and the children back to school. "Be a brave boy, Peter." Mama kissed him goodbye. Peter burst into tears and clung to her. "No, no, darling, don't cry. I'll be back soon." But Peter sobbed as though his heart would break. Mr. Kaiser had to drag him away from his mother, who climbed into the coach. The horses started to move. With a cry of despair, Peter pulled away from Mr. Kaiser and rushed after the carriage. He grabbed at the footboard and slipped as his hands touched the wheels. "Don't go! Don't go!" he screamed. Strong arms lifted him up. Mr. Kaiser tried to comfort him. Bruised and covered with mud, Peter Tchaikovsky sobbed as he watched the coach disappear down the road. The teachers at his new school were kind to Peter. Monsieur Berard, his French teacher, even took him to the children's court ball, where he saw the Tsar, the ruler of the mighty Russian Empire. He was as close as the sofa is to the writing desk in Papa's study, he wrote to his parents. Peter missed them. They kept promising to come and see him, but something always prevented them. "If my beautiful angels do not come," he wrote, "I will be very lonely." It was Sunday, and Peter lifted his books out of the hollow linden tree in the garden. Instead of going out to see Nikolai, he had to stay at school and study. "I was 3rd in the February exams," he thought. "I'm sure I'll do well in the ones in June, too." Peter was right. He passed the exams and went into the Advanced School of Law. His parents had decided he would be a lawyer. The boys liked him, especially when he played the piano for them to dance. One day, the noise of their stamping feet disturbed Monsieur Berard in the room below. When he angrily opened the door, the boys rushed out. Peter refused to give their names and took the punishment alone. Monsieur Berard shook his head sadly. "Peter, you are one of our best students, but I fear that music will always be your first love." Monsieur Berard was right. Some years later, Peter decided to become a musician. He went on to write 10 operas, 6 symphonies, 4 concertos, and the music for 3 famous ballets, Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty, and The Nutcracker. And that is the end.